Good to go. All right, it's Tuesday, October 7th, 2025, 7:31 PM. I'm gonna call the Town of Willington Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Members present, myself, Bob Shabbat, Andy Marco, Doug Roberts, Beckett Sanowski, Joe Hall, and Bill Bennell. No applications for receipt tonight, no public hearings, brings us to item E, new business. Number one, informal discussion for CGS 7-159B with Aaron Miller regarding River Road parcel MBL 47-001-0A.
Thanks for hearing me today. My name is Aaron Miller. I run games, airsoft games at a field in Woket. I'm a lifelong Connecticut resident in Bristol. I went to UConn here, looking at 31 acres of property on River Road. It's right now zoned as industrial. And I spoke to, I believe it's Mike Tomato about coming in today and just kind of telling you exactly what I plan to do and hoping that it's okay to do with that type of zoning. I run airsoft events, which is very similar to paintball. Basically, I'm looking for the land to be used as a chessboard. So I run games. The land itself is the board. I bring players and people. It's a very team-oriented type of game. And it has very little impact to the land itself, which is why the land is important to me. The land itself there is really cool. It's very graded. The topography is up and down, lots of hills, lots of mountainous features, which would make it great to get a bunch of guys out there in the woods having fun and off the couch.
Where, Andy Marco, where,
Sure.
what, you said the address was? what?
Yeah, it's a little hard. I believe it's between 686. We didn't really have, it's known on the MLS listing as just 0 River Road.
Next to the old fabrication.
You're gonna pull it out, Mike.
Fabrication site, if you'll let me.
I'm still not know where that is.
Here we go. Mike's gonna bring it up.
You know, they sold spring water.
Oh,
Yes, I know what that
And
is.
then
Yeah.
the fabrication.
Was up on that.
yeah, it's under super graded.
Gotcha, yeah, that's a very steep.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do, the only real building where we would do is in about 100 feet, because I want to keep the structure. It's very important with these type of games to keep as much land as raw natural features
Sure.
as possible. So I wanted to leave about 100 foot barrier from the road.
Yep.
And then create a small parking lot for cars to park, obviously, for guys to get in there. And the games that we do, I mean, we have father-son, that's what got me into it. My son who first started, 12 years old, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. And we've been doing it for about 9 years out in Woket.
And it's a
There's my
non,
wife here.
I'm sorry, it's a non-spectator sport. So
Right.
when you're there, you're participating. So it doesn't bring in,
Okay.
you know, like people to watch it or anything like
Right,
that.
it's just
Yeah,
basically the
Okay.
guys who want to play.
How many people in a session? Like
Typically 50 to 100.
Okay.
Fun. And it's what, how many acres?
It's 31,
31,
yeah.
okay.
My father would be here tonight too. He's kind of like my partner,
Nice.
but he's at Yale New Haven. He had open heart surgery about a week and a half
Oh,
ago.
Lord.
Please.
He went home, he was doing good, but they wanted to do a checkup, but they're keeping him overnight.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's watching from Zoom, I don't know.
So the water outfit's right next door, right? That's.
Correct, so our boundaries would be the little brooks that are on there.
So right next door.
Oh, right, that little parcel, that's where the fabrication
That's a
shop is.
fabrication shop.
Oh, okay.
Like C's Antiques.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah, the antique store, right.
I changed over that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Years.
Now I'm tracked.
I know where this
And
is.
the next.
Yeah, so it is zoned as
Okay.
industrial right now, yeah.
It's industrial currently. So, Mike, you see a conflict with this, where this is like commercial, right?
So, yeah, if you look at section, it's a little bit confusing the way section, so that I can show to you.
Have you gotten any input from the neighbors? I know there's a couple houses right now.
One of the neighbors is the one selling the land, if
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
mistaken, and they're looking to move out, they're selling everything, they're selling the house as one lot, and then they're selling the other. I know that the owner itself has rented out the property before to be logged, at certain times.
Okay.
Other than that, these group activities, like they usually pay a club, like kind of admission to go.
So if you look at the industrial zone regulations, DI, and you look at the permitted uses, it lists several. And then when you go to, so that is section 5.05 of the regulation. So if you're flipping through in the upper right-hand corner, it'll tell you the section. So it'd be 315-5. So there's,
There we go.
it lists all the allowable uses. And then what's a little bit confusing is that the zoning regulations have in the table, so if you look at section 5.11, they call it table 5.04, and that lists a whole bunch of uses by category. So as you look through that and you get to what would be I guess the bottom of this is technically pages, but when you, if you start looking through the table, there's a use section called cultural, entertainment, and recreational, and then it lists several uses. So within that, the first one, it says cultural, nature, sports, recreational activities, parks and playgrounds. And then it talks, and then it says recreational activities. And then there's some other things that are listed, and if you look at the DI zone, it says that those are permitted by special permit. So
Wouldn't this be sort of considered a sport?
it would be, what's a little bit confusing is that all of those listed uses are not then carried back into the reg. It's meant to be sort of an expanded list. So it's in my mind, the way that it sort of originally intended was that the categories are listed in the actual regulations themselves, and then it sort of further explains the types of uses that may fall under those categories. But the actual heading isn't listed. It talks about historic monument sites, parks and playgrounds. It talks about golf course, subject to the provisions of, special regulations for golf courses, which are included as part of the cultural, entertainment and recreational.
What page are you, I'm sorry,
You're in
I'm in the table on
You're in
5.11.
5, okay.
So if you turn to the bottom section.
Gotcha. Yep.
So there's bits and pieces that have been carried over, but they're not, all of the uses listed in this table are not incorporated into the section for the DI zone. And so again, not a determination that I just wanted to make cold. There's some language in the top of the table that said if there's a conflict, this table is for convenience only, and you should refer to the zoning regulations themselves. So again, they're all covered, you see some of those other uses that are in there, and they're sort of mentioned, just not specific with specifics. So what for the purpose of tonight is to, obviously for him to present the use, but to determine really what is the path. Is it that it is covered under one of the specified uses and in reference to this table? Or is it not covered and would require a text change?
Design commercial, 1 second.
I don't know, yeah, that's.
Well, so it's currently designed industrial. So if you look at the DI zone, you'll see that they're all in there.
So it's interesting that design commercial zone talks about live entertainment, indoor or outdoor. Under, on the page heading is 315-5.04, item I.
For, oh, for design commercial.
Design commercial.
Yeah, so I mean, if it was covered, they could do the zone change and. Zone change or text amendment, I mean, either would be an option, obviously it's an additional step. The text amendment and zone change fundamentally sort of have the same
Yeah.
timing.
Right.
Maybe the zone change is a little bit faster, because we don't have to have the text drafted and referred to CROG, which has that little lag.
Yeah.
But if you look at what's listed in the allowable use categories for special permit. There's philanthropic, educational, religious, cemetery, charitable by a nonprofit. Obviously, that would not apply. There's club. I don't know
Right.
if this,
Well, I wanna ask Mr. Miller, you mentioned a club.
Yeah,
Can you expand on that?
sure, almost like a monthly fee that people pay to go in there. People get, when they play the games, they get commemorative patches, things like that. I actually brought some, if anybody wants
So
to see them.
you join this organization
Yeah,
and then do you have to,
almost like a season pass.
okay,
Yeah.
and, then are people members?
Well, for the day or for the month, depending if they buy a daily pass or a monthly pass.
So, but is it incorporated as a club or is it, are you?
Well, I'm the admin basically of, just the game scenario. So if they were to come in.
Was it like an LLC or something, or is it must have some
Oh,
sort
no, just a sole proprietorship.
of sole proprietorship, okay.
So here's two things here under design, industrial, here recreational activities by special permit, club by special permit.
Mhm.
Wouldn't recreational activity cover this? That's for profit. There's another one, a couple up, that it could be nonprofit, but it can be profit too under recreational activities.
And if I can, the one that I'm running right now in Wilkett, that's what we fall under as the outdoor recreational, and that's the usage.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's different with the town. Indeed.
I thought that I was gonna ask that same question,
Yeah, that
special
seems
permit
to me
for recreational
that it-
activities.
Puts it could fit in there without making a zone change.
Everything, keep the kids occupied.
Yeah,
And off the couch,
I actually have-
and off the phones, no cell phones permitted out there, they don't like them, yeah.
And it looks like any sales of things that would support that would be acceptable.
They don't have.
It talks about retail sales, things that are supporting whatever activities happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's under designed industrial.
Okay, I got it. Then you started flipping through. the
Yeah,
other
I know, there's
pages.
just a lot of information.
Sorry, I know there's a lot of pages.
Kind of new format.
And we have a new format, so, but,
And
once get the hang of it. it's not
design
bad.
around that.
Yeah.
I don't do that.
What, tell me about the, whatever you wanna call them, I forget what they call them. The pellets themselves, are they biodegradable?
They sure are,
I can't remember.
I brought a bottle.
Yeah, I've done it before, I just can't remember.
They're 6 millimeter pellets, they're biodegradable.
Non-toxic to hogs.
Nothing, no.
They hurt a little bit.
No. They do, everything is very quiet, because it's literally air, just like a Nerf gun.
I've got some on my face.
Yeah, but if you look at the front, it says right on it, it's all biodegradable BBs.
What are these made of, cellulose or something?
Yeah, and actually, it's funny, because they have ones that are actually made of peas. We have items that have been, so we found them in areas that have been sitting for a while, and they're literally growing sprouts. It's kind of cool, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of an ancillary.
That's a farm business.
Hey, I'm not harvesting it.
Go ahead.
Sounds like agriculture to me.
Right.
Anybody else wanna look at those, or?
Oh, yeah, but that's what we use, it's all biodegradable.
I'm sure everybody's required to like wear protection on their.
Oh, yeah, full eye protection,
Oh,
we're
I see.
carrying out
Yeah,
full
I've done
liability insurance.
paintball in the
I don't know how to
past.
read
you
Right,
know,
right.
That hurt too. if
Well,
you
I
had
will
it.
say this is less painful than paintball.
I got hit in the back of the hand, I had a
Oh, yeah, no, way
Like,
less,
like
and we go by, what's called chronograph, where there's a chronograph machine, where they set limits, to how fast the pellet can actually come out. And that's just part of the safety issues on there, yeah.
What's your take, Mike? It looks like it would. Recreation would cover this.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that hung me up was that it's not listed in the uses that are included in the uses under the DI zone text, but it's in the table. And so, you know, looking at it back and forth, you know, I think two things come to mind. There are, you know, some similarities between other uses that are allowable, and there are certainly uses which are allowable in the DI zone, which are of greater intensity. And you can have a building, you can do manufacturing, processing, you can do outdoor storage, you can do all these things with equipment and products. So to me, this is a lower intensity thing.
Yeah.
So again, you know, what was told to me, maybe when we were on the phone, or somehow is in my head, that the reason that these properties are all, there's this triplet of properties, is because Willington is unique in that there are minimum requirements for the size of a zone. And so when the zone change was actually applied, in order to meet the minimum standard, which I think is 25 acres, they needed to include multiple properties or something to be able to get. So the idea behind it is that you can't establish a zone that includes, you know, it's only 5 acres or something. So when you set that zone initially, it has to incorporate a certain total number of acres, which is how I think this was originally established. So again, I don't think that if you believe the use is appropriate for the location, then simply going through the formality of changing the zone so that it fits a little bit differently when there's something in the table that we can point it to, I don't know that that makes the application any better, right? It's just another step in the process. But for me, because I wasn't sure, and this is a little bit of a different use, it made more sense before he submitted to, I think, come here and talk it through. Which is why I recommend he come here. He doesn't own the property yet, and so, you know,
So
making
as
an
long
offer.
as we're counting parking, there's enough room to park 100 up to 100.
Right.
Well, there's probably multiple people come in one car sometimes. So, you know,
Absolutely,
you
yeah,
that many,
usually
but-
groups of guys come out.
But you know,
Ladies
the traffic situation, parking, so forth, it's minimal environmental impact. You know, doing this.
Yeah,
Anything
so
at night, anything in,
Typically not, to play at night takes, of course, night vision, and it's a little expensive. Personally, I play at night, I have that stuff, but,
so it could happen.
it could happen,
Yeah.
it could happen, but typically, no, it would be, during the day, and only, of course, on like a Saturday and Sunday. And everything usually ends at 4 o'clock.
How do you establish your boundaries? So,
Boundaries, markers, full markers on everything, yeah, every tree in the boundary. How we do it at the other field, every tree on your boundary is literally wrapped in caution tape or, you know, trespass tape.
So nobody's going to.
Nobody's going into anybody's properties, anything like that.
And I would just like to add in too, that just from knowing and witnessing this and seeing this over the years, the guys who do come are very professional about the sport. They know to like ask about, you know, where the boundaries are, what are the rules, what, you know, how are we, you know, handling things. There was a farm, for example, in Florida that literally had cows on the property where they were playing airsoft, and the guys were all very respectful of the animals. So they're all used to, when they come to a property or a new town, to like really figure out how it is that they're supposed to be acting. It's a very professional, you know.
What's the range of those pellets when you're buying them?
It really depends on the target marker, but usually, no more than like 100, we say, 100 feet, 200 feet.
How far could it go?
With boundaries like the chronographs that we check, literally, as far as, the plastic pellets, I'm thinking maybe 200 feet. 200 feet.
Does it require to have any kind a safety zone or setbacks from where the boundaries are?
Typically, we do that, with the boundary lines, we make sure that all the zones are like, you're nowhere near any type of traffic, that's why typically when we set these up, and I have a map, by the way, of how it's set up at our Wolcott field. We have a boundary line that's made of the cars, because we're a parking lot in the front. And then to even play, they have to go deeper into the woods. I could actually show you that as well. So actually very similar to the land that we were looking at there. And of course, I got more of these, but the parking, this would be the parking here, and then everything playable is further in. I can get you guys one of those.
So what's your vision of size parking lot you wanna put in?
Well, I scouted it out, because it's so graded there, literally just a smaller parking lot for maybe, like I said, like the 50 cars at most, so I'm thinking. I'm not good with math and the numbers, but I'm thinking probably maybe 100 foot wide by 50 feet deep, something like that.
Okay.
I know that on the frontage there, I believe it's listed that it's over 600 feet of frontage.
It's quite a bit of.
It's
frontage.
quite a bit of frontage, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I wouldn't use all of that, and of course, I want it set back because I want people to come into the parking lot through a huge row of trees.
So it's, as you get further back, that's just, it gets
Correct.
steeper.
Correct, and that's where they would be playing, in the steeper hills. I've got pictures also, if anybody wants to see the hills out there, there's huge glacial boulders, which I really like about it. It's, I mean, some of them are like 14, 15 feet high. You don't see a lot of that. It's great.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do around here.
Yeah, you do it right. I told my wife right away, I was like, we gotta call this part Stonehenge, cause it's like, yeah.
Is there anything there now? Is it?
No, there's
Just
nothing.
woods, just
Yeah,
all
just woods.
Well, Woods would, I guess there's one or two small, seasonal brooks that come down there.
No fields
Yeah.
or anything, no roadways going up there?
Nope, there's a couple big little trails. It looks like someone's been maybe riding, the motorbike
If they
there.
had a lot, then you're gonna see skitter trails for sure. Oh. That's open.
So when you put the parking lot in,
Uh-huh.
are you looking to have a flat area where you're gonna wanna cut into the grade?
I would try to do it as flat as possible. Of course, that would be under the engineers. I don't do any of that myself.
Right.
But I would try to get it as flat as possible. I do know that we want it natural, so we're looking at like a crushed rock type of atmosphere because, like I said, once again, these guys don't want like to go to a mini golf type scenario where everything is so phony and fake. They want to go play in the woods.
Okay.
Hey, Mike,
Mhm.
being as there's not I mean, it looks like something that could fit in, but being as there's not an exact fit. Without having that, does that open the town to any liability?
No, I mean, they're your regulations, and so if you look at in the top of the table, it says that there's a discrepancy. Everybody can have their opinions about what a discrepancy is, but they're your regulations, so. You going through this process, that the idea is to determine, was there an omission? Is this an actual, we intended to omit this, or is this similar to what is allowed? So there's
We
no.
never would have conceived of this when we were thinking.
There's no way.
No way. No way.
Right, but I mean, when you included sports and all those, in the
Recreation,
table,
things like.
Yeah.
but not pulling it over into the use, I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, that's the only one that's omitted from the table and all the other ones are but the table is like 6 pages long. And only a few of each of those appear within the regs themselves, and my guess is that a lot of places are like this, they'll say that personal service is allowed. And so personal service is allowed in the zone, and then we have a table that explains all these other things which fall under personal service.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so instead of having 100 uses in every zone. So my guess is that was the intent, it just didn't get kind of carried over that way, but you're not, I mean, every decision that you make is appealable, right? Every decision, no matter what, but it's appealable to someone who is aggrieved, not someone who lives in Coventry that disagrees with your opinion. They have to be aggrieved by your specific decision.
I will say, as far as sport, it is known in Europe as, it's called air sport. It's not airsoft. Because it is a sport. I mean, I log, just as an admin, I log 8 sometimes 8 or more miles in the day when we're playing from like 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock, just on a typical Sunday. And at 51, not bad.
Yeah, really.
You're looking at recreational activity.
Yeah, no, trust me, I feel it now.
Recreational activity would mean prepared fields
Yeah.
and all, everything that goes along with that. This is more or less using the land in its natural state.
Yeah.
So it's low impact.
Altering land much,
Yeah.
this is a recreational activity.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
How about, I like the fact you got a meth camp down there.
Oh, I told her, I said, you're totally gonna see that. So the reason why was because in that particular field, they had a bunch of old, I think maybe at one time, the guy stored a bunch of, RVs.
Oh,
So with the whole
So it
Breaking
kinda looks
Bad
bad,
thing,
yeah.
Yeah.
they're like, we'll call it that, yeah.
that's a good idea.
So
The toilet facilities, so portable toilets,
Yes, porta potties, yep, that are serviced every, bi-weekly.
so you'd have a local company do that probably.
Yep, yep, totally.
All right.
And of course, everybody's gotta go to Willington Pizza at the end.
Well, that's what
I know every time I've stopped at the land to see it. I
Breakfast on the way,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Might be good for some other.
the other thing that I'm looking at now is if you look at that table where it mentions all these additional uses. This use in particular, many, but this use in particular is allowed in every zone. So I think it's harder to say, no, this is wrong, you 20 years ago intentionally omitted this from the industrial use category, because. It's allowed in this cultural, nature, sports, recreational activities. And then even the recreational activities are allowed in design, commercial, design, industrial, design. The DCR, the only one that the recreational activities is not allowed is R80 and DNC. Again, a golf course is allowed by special permit in every zone.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, historic and monument sites, I mean, there's a lot of similar uses that are allowable across the board. The top piece being nonprofit, but again, recreational is allowed in all but the R80, which this is not. This was intentionally changed, so I think, again, how that came to be, I'm sure there's an explanation, good or bad. But, and the other thing I was just looking at that is allowed. We just even. Talks about business services. The other thing that I could do. Is. I could run. No, we do not define business service. I mean, I could run a notice of decision and you issued a determination. That this that. You know, this use fell into a category as defined in the table, to run it as a notice of decision. After tonight's meeting, ahead of any application. That's fine. So if someone had an issue with it,
Just
you know,
shows that we agree.
and then it's there, it's advertised in the same way we would advertise a legal notice for a hearing. And it's out in the open, and then we have a record of it and. Do that.
What zone are you in Walcott?
I believe it's a recreational,
Okay.
literally recreational.
No, this recreation backs into this.
Yeah,
I think so, we got club on there, we have playgrounds in
yeah,
there.
that's a good idea, Mike.
Plenty of other
Around.
parallels, Mike.
That way, you know, at least it's official.
And it's still public, I mean, it's special permit, so there's still public hearing in the whole 9 yards, that whole process would still unfold, it's not like you're saying they can go get started now.
No,
This is one of the more interesting ones I've heard in a while.
So in order for a special permit, how long does that take? And my big question is, of course, I have to put an offer in on the property, and it's gonna be contingent that I get the special permit awarded. So I'm gonna have to ask them for time, obviously.
The gap in us being able to give you a good time frame on that is how long it takes you to get the materials you need for your application together.
Okay.
The process requires a public hearing, so we would receive the application, schedule the public hearing for a subsequent meeting. I would think you could assume that, start to finish from when you submit the application to a decision, traditionally that takes less than 60 days.
Okay.
Commission meets twice a month, so we schedule a hearing, open a hearing, potentially continue a hearing.
Okay.
So it really shouldn't take longer than that, but how long it takes you to get the plan together, what you're gonna do with the parking and there's a curb cut there, so you're gonna have to work with your engineer to determine site line of sight distances, because it's a state road.
Oh.
So you're gonna need encroachment permit from them, and they will tell you based upon the speed of the road, how much sight line you need. And that will tell you where you put the driveway. So you wanna make sure you don't run into an issue with
Right.
where it needs to go is, ledge and.
And that's outside of our purview,
Right.
that's DOT.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
Different course, kind of.
Is that a different application or does that all go in with the same application?
That's completely unplugged from here.
Okay,
The DOT, you'll work with District One at DOT to get a permit to encroach into their right of way, which is essentially to make the driveway. But based on the speed of the road, they'll tell you, you need, because it's not just for a home site,
Okay.
you're gonna need a certain distance, number of feet or yards of line of sight on both sides, so
Right.
vehicles can see pulling in and out.
Okay.
And so that distance will tell your engineer where he can put the driveway. It may be that you have to clear some of the frontage if there's some grass or
Sure,
trees so that you
sure.
can have a distance
No, it makes
there.
sense, for safety, obviously, yeah.
Although I feel like the right of way is kind of wide there. I don't know.
That road straightens out right.
Yeah.
too.
So you may have it, but your engineer
Sure.
will do that. They typically will not issue an encroachment permit until you have local approval. But you'll need to know what those design standards are, so you don't tell us the driveway's gonna be on the east side, and then DOT tells you it's gotta be on the west side, and you're designing the thing twice. Very standard, so any engineer that you're gonna work with, that's done work, I mean, all these roads are state. So it's very standard run-of-the-mill process.
Another question,
Sure.
equipment,
Uh-huh.
bring their own,
They do, yes.
so there's no type of equipment shop or.
No, there's no, I mean, sometimes we have guys on site that can fix things. But other than that, there's no equipment shop or anything. Usually how we do it, we bring maybe a Connex to put like supplies. I'm big into making props. So we would have like a bin to put the props in. We've got one really cool one that's like a huge drone type of thing and whatnot, but like a prop bin, the crushed gravel driveway. And then a small, probably, admission ticket booth.
Connex is like a trailer.
Yeah,
You a former military guy?
I am not,
So, Connex is kind of,
yeah,
a lot of people call it that.
yeah, I am not, but I've worked with them for quite a while. I've been a photographer actually all my life, so
Oh,
I've worked
really?
with them for quite a while in the
Oh,
private
fun.
sector, yeah. Yeah, we do get by the way, the majority of the people come are either vets or younger kids who are looking to join.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
you're all gonna come play, right?
I hope so.
A little skinny bike.
Team building.
If I started at the top of.
Yeah,
the
right.
work,
Hold up.
I think we make good targets.
Cannon fodder.
Props.
We'll have our meetings out there with our night vision goggles.
Yeah, I do have to go out.
There you go. That'll be how,
It's a whole
take your
nother
boats by.
That might be a good site for maple sugaring too.
Oh, is there a lot of maple out there? Yeah.
There is.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, nice steep hills.
Yeah, put the tubing up and just. let it-
Yeah.
Closed down.
Everybody, free pancake breakfast, everybody come.
Excellent.
All right, any further questions? All right,
Okay, well, thank you for your time, everyone. What would be my next step then? Should I wait for?
If you follow up with me, send me an email, I
Okay.
can send you some links to some stuff so that you
Perfect.
know where to go for.
Because I am new at this, obviously, like the other place was all planned, this is like my thing.
Yep.
I don't
Yeah.
own the other land at all.
So I'll send you some stuff about where the application is and some of the links to the regulations so you can see. And then if you want to set up a meeting, we can, with your engineer, we can
Okay,
talk through what he'll need to do for the plan itself when because that'll be part of the application.
okay, and are there fees for the application on links and?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, the fee schedule is online.
Okay,
We just approved, I think the special permit is around $375.
Right, so the application gets submitted. And then we review that, and then we set up the public hearing. We have 35 days to do that. And 65 days after that, it's at the most. That's the maximum time.
Unless they issue an extension.
Unless they-
Yep, correct.
Okay. And then once the permit is granted, I'm hoping it's granted, once it's granted, is it revocable or?
If you tell the commission you're gonna do X and you do Y,
Got it.
yes.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a special permit, you file it on the land records and it runs with the land, so there's no. There may, depending on how conditions work, there may be something where they want a check-in at some point to make sure that you're abiding by any conditions or there aren't any issues, but. This isn't something where every year you come in and say, can I keep doing this? And they can say yes or no once it's issued. If there's lack of compliance, that's a different story, but if you hold up your end of the bargain, then the permit runs.
Gotcha.
Straight through.
I only asked because obviously I wanna buy it and do what I said I'm doing with it, and I don't wanna not be able to do it, that's all, yeah.
Awesome.
Cool, well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate all your time, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming in early.
Yeah.
Having a discussion there earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Did anybody want any other info? These are the patches, by the way, everybody gets commemorative patches when.
Although, yeah, don't forget your other.
Yeah, sure.
Meth lab, Matt.
Yeah. You're not gonna live that one down.
And I know he's gonna come too, I'll
I
show him some of
remember
these
that for a long
patches,
time.
you gotta see the, they Velcro onto their gear. They're pretty cool. Oh, cool. But we do a lot of inspired games by movies, so like Red Dawn and whatnot, yeah. Black Hawk Down.
Oh, yeah.
Tarkov, which is, I guess, a video game that kids play, but we do it in real life.
That's cool.
Cool.
Can this be construed as a bribe or anything?
Nope. They come back. They gotta earn them. They gotta play the game. Yeah.
You gotta get shot a few times.
Thanks so much, gentlemen.
$75.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, take care.
All right, which brings us to item number 2 under new business tax stabilization ordinance, review and provide feedback.
So I put this on here mostly because I figured it made sense to strike while the iron was hot in the sense of. I know Bill, Mike, Walter, Andy, Bob, most of you were at the town meeting, so you heard the comments. And the only takeaway that I heard was. There needs to be some more discussion, and one of the questions that was raised was, what was the feedback from some of the boards and commissions? So I thought, while we're sort of all thinking about it, I would just put it on the agenda so that the commission could discuss if there were any comments or anything that you wanted to provide to the EDC or Board of Selectmen. So you have copies of the ordinance.
And you're not going lobstering in Willington.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is written by the attorney, and if it mirrors the statute, understandably. Pulling little things out of the statute, I mean, when you're talking about the universe of eligible uses. Do I think it's likely that someone's gonna be running that business from here? No. Is it possible? It is possible. Sure, it's possible. There's all kinds of people that may, have some connection or operate a business from a home or, who knows what, so. I just, structurally, if there were comments or people wanted to go through and talk about it as we start. The discussion of it, how to go forward, having that feedback early, I felt like was helpful while it's fresh in everyone's mind, so.
And the only thing that came to my mind at the town meeting was the fact that I think it would be good to understand, maybe from the tax assessor's standpoint, when one of these comes in, how much work is it for her office, and is it in enough depth where it means bringing in the town attorney to facilitate that.
Mhm.
I think just to go blindly and say, oh yeah, this is what we wanna do, and then all of a sudden have one of the employees in town saying, well, oh, this, I can't get this done in just a couple days. And I need the attorney, and then it's like, people are saying, oh, well, there's attorney fees involved with this. So I think, I'd like to have some understanding of what it takes to facilitate this once something comes into the assessor. And how she processes that and what the cost is.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly talk to Kara. My initial thoughts are this process is sort of like an upfront Board of Assessment Appeals process. The BAA works, you get an assessment, if you disagree with the assessment, you appeal it, you go to the Board of Assessment Appeals and you talk about, and ultimately they make a decision. And if they adjust that, then the assessor reflects that in the grand list and that adjustment is reflected on your tax bill going forward. This is determining the value of something up front and establishing a term of that agreement and what that value is worth. Whether there's an agreement or not, the assessor still has to value the project. Of course, the project doesn't go forward. She still has to determine what the value of the project is. And if it is something that is part of, you know, the vision software that they use, computer aided mass appraisal, I think is what it is, then that assists them in determining the value. So she does not assign a value to your house and your house. The revaluation process, that is done through metrics and data, and they determine how many bedrooms, bathrooms, property size, all those things. So she has to assign a value no matter what. There's certainly more time involved, but there's not a lot of administration of the agreement once it's in place.
But I think what was mentioned from the general public was people wanted to understand better what the process was. So even that information is more, gives me a better understanding. So I think moving forward, you know, people were like,
I think some people were under the impression the selectmen could do whatever they wanted.
yeah,
That was the
Yeah.
impression I got from people.
right. So I just think that, you know, I don't know if you have some kind of intermediate meeting or another town meeting. I don't know how you wanna, what umbrella you wanna put it under or heading, just to let people understand how this process
Absolutely,
works.
yeah, I heard that. I think people wanted to know the mechanics of it, what does it really look like? What will be the process? And I did hear sort of more than once by a bunch of different people that maybe this should always go before the legislative body. Meaning, no matter what group that was late, whatever, whether it was selectmen, board of finance or whatever.
Yeah.
Bring it to a town meeting and you vote on it. Here's what we planned, here's what it's gonna look like. Do a chart and say this is what the taxes are gonna be. I don't think that's wrong. And then does the town approve it? I'll make a motion to approve this tax stabilization plan. And if you get a majority vote, it goes for it. If not, say sorry. And if that business says, okay, we're not coming to your town then, because we don't have this plan. So be it, then it's the legislative body made that decision and then they own it. That's not necessarily. If you wanna get the community involved, which I do, and I think that's valuable. I don't see that as a problem. I think that this is something that a municipality can do. Yes, there is risk involved. But if we want to attract business,
Yep.
we have to take some kind of risk. And this type of risk does not seem as painful as other risks that you might want to take, like. I said in the town meeting that we don't have the authority nor the right. To just tell a business they can't come here. If somebody sells their property and it's in a commercial zone. And we have a commercial business that is allowed or not prohibited, then it's here, whether we like it or not. So to me, if we can have more tools in our toolbox to attract business, then yes, there is a risk involved in that.
Are we setting ourselves up for a lawsuit if we, you know, they put something forward and the town votes it down, like we're doing it that way? That seems like that might open some.
I mean, you're not under any obligation by ordinance or otherwise to enter into any agreements. So you know, that decision is not something that's subject to appeal. It was voted down and the town decided not to extend an agreement.
In the way this is written at the state level, though, like it said that in this, the selectmen.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Well, that was all,
Where did
that's
that come
local.
about? That's local.
That was,
Okay.
yeah, so there's enabling legislation in the statutes which says that towns can enter into stabilization agreements. How you adopt the ordinance is up to the town, and so some towns have one line ordinances that say. Town of X can enter into a tax stabilization agreement if it so chooses. And other towns have things that are more prescriptive. I have only ever seen stabilization agreements for energy projects like solar and battery. Because they are worth a lot and then depreciate quickly. Whereas a more traditional project like FedEx, Love's, whatever, some of those commercial developments, they don't have a steep decline in value. And so a stabilization is meant to say, in year one, you're gonna pay 40% of the value, and then in year two, you're gonna pay 50% of the value, in year three, you're gonna pay 60% of the value. Because like a laptop or a car, as soon as as soon as you purchase it or it comes online, the value drops. And so they don't wanna commit all that cash up front because they have just constructed the property, the whole project. They would rather pay less upfront and stabilize it. But real estate tends to be more consistent or appreciate. And so it's harder to stabilize that type of an asset because the way that stabilization works is you pay more as time goes on. So that at the end of the agreement, you're at 100%. When the value is appreciating, you're paying more on top of the value going up. And so I don't think it's as common. What people really want is abatement. They want an abatement. I was running the numbers to the extent that my math brain is capable of, you need $4 million of investment to generate $100,000 in tax. So if we want another 100,000, I don't know, what's the town's total budget? We know,
21 million.
21 million.
Yeah, like 10 million with schools.
So if we assume, someone's gonna have to do this math, but if we assume a 2% increase per year, 2% of 21 million is what?
400,000.
Okay, so we need $12 million of investment to generate the amount of revenue that we would need to offset that increase annually. So you need someone to spend 12 million bucks. And if the only thing the town is willing to do is stabilize that, I think that's a challenge because you have many surrounding towns that are willing to abate it. I think I said there's an adjacent town that has a self-storage facility. The guy came in and said, listen, I have less than 50% occupancy. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna have to sell the building. I have nobody. My abatement agreement is coming due with the town and I want to extend it. They're like, well, why would we want to extend it, right? The building isn't new anymore. There's not much going on. He sat down, showed them the numbers and they're like, yeah, you really are not bringing it in. This is not financially feasible for you. And we'd rather you have a partially occupied building that you're paying the taxes on. And they used his income and verified it to determine that he was not making that up. That's an abatement. And so, Tolland and Vernon and Manchester and a lot of these towns are offering those types of things. So my only response to trying to think about this a little bit differently is I just don't see. The whole reason this started is because the battery folks wanted a stabilization agreement. And the reason that they asked for the ordinance is because they did not want to rely on, there's a statute that's already in place that sort of allows for certain projects, theirs would qualify to go through the stabilization process via the legislative body, which they did not want to do. Because they don't want to have, number one, the risk, but also, having those financial discussions in a way that ultimately requires that they run it out to a town meeting and they don't know who will show up and there's a lot of risk and exposure there. Two things that no business wants. So I don't know how, what I struggle with is the comments that I heard are gonna take this ordinance from something that I'm not sure how useful it will be in practice because of the way it was written to a place that I think would make it less useful.
I can tell you what businesses don't want a clown show, when they're trying to do something, all of a sudden, like they have anybody and everybody shows up, starts pelleting them with with things and you can't come to any consensus. Businesses want certainty,
Right.
not like,
Right.
So
I
how
can't
do
see
you,
it, the business though, the business would present the tax plan. The town would present the tax plan, it's not the,
but it affects the business.
but the,
no, it affects the business, but it wouldn't be their call, it would be, the town would bring that, I mean, at least the way I imagine it. Whoever it is, if it's the election, if it's the board of finance, whoever it is, they would then present that to say, this is what the town wants to do. The business might have a representative there, but there wouldn't be any questions for that. It's about taxes, it's not about the viability of the business.
true,
It's simply about tax collection, which is totally the town's purview and wheelhouse. It has nothing to do, I mean, the business is affected. But the agreement is within the town.
But
And
the details related to how the town, and so let's say we're going with the battery project, which requires a legislative body.
right,
It's not necessarily implied exactly, but I guess the assumption is that staff, board of selectmen, first selectmen in consultation with the town attorney and the assessor would draft and prepare this agreement, the terms of which would go to town meeting. I guess what I envision is a discussion during the town meeting of, well, how do we know that's the value? How do we know that's the investment? How did you get to those numbers? Where is the
well, if
map?
we don't know that, then we shouldn't be entering
Well,
into
you'll-
the plan.
The board of selectmen will know it, but the question is, will the legislative body say, yeah, we're gonna approve it, not having seen those numbers? Because they're gonna have,
I would think that would be
well,
part
I
of
don't
the
know.
presentation.
Will a private corporation want to provide publicly the numbers related to their investment in the project?
Isn't it public record anyway? All the tax records are,
No, but their costs related to,
oh, how they
The
got there,
development.
right, oh, I see.
they're gonna
You're right.
sink how many millions of dollars into site costs, into upfront costs, labor, all of those things.
But we're not looking at,
But those are the things that you're gonna wanna see to determine the value, cause you gotta set the value to determine the stabilization. And so those are all part and parcel of what the assessor's gonna say, well, let's figure out the value, how do we get there, right? It's not just price per square foot. There's gonna be a lot of other things that they're gonna look at to determine, okay, this project is valued at X. And so,
clearly, I don't know enough about commercial taxation.
well, this is just the projects. I mean, I sat in another town and they said that we want a tax agreement. Oh, okay, well, what's your investment? They wanted an agreement based on $18 million. And $11 million was site cost. Just putting in the driveway, building the parking lot, moving dirt around, running conduit, adding wastewater, adding well. And buying the property, right? That's their cost.
Right.
That doesn't add any value. They want an abatement on the whole thing. We're like, we're not giving you an abatement on something that has absolutely no
Right.
change to the real estate.
Correct.
So we had to go through all of those numbers to figure out what was going to ultimately result in the value. To determine what was even capable of being stabilized or abated. So the board of selectmen, the assessor, all those things are, that conversation I think is going to happen.
Okay.
But that
That's
doesn't have to
exactly
happen
what we
with
probably
the
need to know.
legislature.
That's the mechanics.
Yeah.
No, but I
You're
think
gonna give
that,
them a synopsis, you're gonna give
Yeah, I
them,
think that's-
here's the site, here's the value of the improvements.
How do you figure that?
yes, it's just, this is all predicated on the legislative body agreeing that the numbers in that final analysis make sense to them. And not wanting to be a part of that. Well, how did you arrive at this value? What did you take off that? Did you incorporate this? Did we consider that? And so I think that that's gonna become frustrating for the people who attend that meeting, because they're gonna be provided the answer to the math equation, but not necessarily shown all the math.
Well, but so in a tax, without an agreement, how are the taxes determined? That is a matter, is that a matter of public record? Can I go to Kara and say, hey, how do you determine the taxes on microscience or any other business in town or
I don't
black
believe,
pennies or anything?
I don't believe that she can pull out a sheet of paper that shows you all the things. I mean, you can see the components, but I think that that's part of the revaluation process. And there are a whole number of factors that go into that. And I think that
But why would the public be privileged to something? If they can't have it now on a business, why would this new process allow new information to be exposed.
Because that data
Not
is.
challenging, I'm just, I don't.
No, you're
understand
good.
it.
That is the data by which the whole basis of the agreement is founded. And so if we determine through that negotiation that all this infrastructure creates a value of $10 million. And let's say someone else disagrees that this piece shouldn't have been included in the valuation, if you take that out, it's now worth 8. That's a difference in tax on $2 million of value.
I guess. But I think this discussion is going off the rails someplace. I think what people wanted to know at the meeting, just a better sense of how this functions. Not necessarily hard numbers, but how it functions, how it would function in the town's selectmen, board of finance. You know, how would the assessor work with this? How this would get folded into the taxing of Willington? I think that's what they were interested in. I mean, yeah, you're talking about, oh, they're not gonna wanna do this. I don't think that's what they were interested in. Well, somebody may be, I'm sure somebody will bring it up. But I think most people were interested in just a better understanding of how this was going to take and fit in to the town's finances.
Isn't it roughly the same amount of taxes you'd be collecting over the life of something? You're simply smoothing them out.
Exactly the same
You're
amount.
smoothing it out
Yeah.
rather than having it like, go like that.
Right.
You gotta take your
Right.
solar.
Well,
field
and one of
example, or-
one of the questions was, well, over, every year, our
Our mill rates
Our mill rate
change and everything like this,
well, you were there, so you heard.
and then they can appeal that anyway. You have somebody come in, they can appeal the taxes they're getting laid on, and a lot of times they win.
Correct.
Yeah,
And that is,
Most people don't hear about that when they win.
right.
No, right.
That's part of the
That's
benefit
common,
to
yeah.
this is that you establish the value and then you don't litigate the value.
Hmm, yeah.
But, also the agreement would be protected from future changes in legislation. So, if there was something that became tax exempt, but you had an agreement, then it would
You're still
supersede.
paying taxes on it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But, and I know Matt's on his hand raised and I'm riffing this solo, but, what do you think about a structure that would allow the Board of Selectmen to enter into these agreements, provided certain guardrails existed? So rather than.
Like run it through the Board of Finance or
So essentially avoiding the legislative body for agreements that fell into this set of standards. And if somebody wanted to do something more significant or substantial, then you'd have to go to legislative body. But if you met these guardrails, which could be defined and everybody agreed were appropriate, then you could go through, sure, Board of Selectmen or whatever, who would have to review it, but reducing the risk of everybody could say this is great, and then town meeting is just this question mark.
I think your idea of guardrails would probably ease some of the potential concerns about, well, what happens with this, this pet project, quote unquote, comes up, and how come this, was given, certain advantages. So maybe that's another way to go about this. I still think people are interested in understanding how this whole thing works. I mean, that seemed to be an overall question.
Absolutely. But I have a question, all right, so Becker FedEx loves TN. Top 4 taxpayers. Has anyone ever questioned how they got to the valuation? I have no idea. Can I go to Karen and say, how do you get, what would we say, FedEx pays, I forgot, $60,000 in taxes a year.
Oh, gosh, it's gotta be more than that.
More than that.
We get more than that from Love's.
Okay.
They're in the several hundreds.
All right, several hundred thousand. Has anyone ever said, how did you get to that evaluation or that valuation?
Building equipment, you know.
Well, no, I know, but what's the difference than entering into a tax?
This is new.
Okay, that's new. But I mean, but
So-
what, that's how you get there, isn't it the exact same way?
So don't quote me on this, but
What am I missing?
when you go through a revaluation, the town goes out and puts out a bid and it hires a company. A lot of times it's Vision. Vision is the providers of the software that the town uses
Okay.
to maintain its grand list. That's your little property card, et cetera. So they go through and they analyze every property in town, they door knock, all those things, right? So they have what I believe to be a sort of a proprietary methodology in applying all these market conditions, adjusting for distance to job centers, you know, all these different things that goes into how they assign the value. I believe that the whole rationale behind the Board of Assessment Appeals and this whole idea of being able to appeal your assessment is based upon the fact that this computer aided mass appraisal process that the towns go through is not perfect.
Yep.
And so you appeal your assessment and go through the process to demonstrate what it's worth, and the town has the right to adjust it based upon the understanding that we're writing these for 5,000 parcels and there are outliers. So I think that I have never seen, nor have I heard of them being able to provide you with a sheet that provides all the calculations of, okay, number of square footage is equivalent to 10% of their total valuation. Total parcel size is equivalent to that.
But we're talking property taxes, and from what I understand in my brief and probably very good research. Stuff depreciates, so you're talking equipment and lots, so somebody had to go in and value that at the time of procurement. At the acquisition date,
So
acquisition
personal-
date is January 1. It
That's
declines
personal
in-
property.
So
So that is,
business property, this is what I read about business, personal property,
Mhm.
equipment
Mhm.
owned by a company.
Yep.
Starts at the acquisition date, and
correct,
then it drills down for 8 years, and it stops at 30%.
but that is all self-reported. So no one goes, so the assessor doesn't go into FedEx and say, how many machines do you have, what's the value of, they report that value.
Correct.
So
But what's the difference in a tax stabilization plan? Don't I get that exact same data from the company that's starting the business to say, this is what we have, here's our acquisition date, here's what we plan, we go to the state tables, look at depreciation. And then we say, okay, you're gonna depreciate, this is, one of them is mainframe, so let's say a batteries falls under
Yep.
mainframe. 3 years, it depreciates down to X.
those are the
We said-
components,
Right, well, that's,
not the physical construction.
right,
That's the guts of the building, yes, that's
Yes.
all personal property.
correct.
But the physical construction,
Physical construction is different, so you have two lines there that you're balancing,
and
the way I see it.
right, and yes, you have the real estate, which has a value,
Right.
and you have the physical improvements on the property, parking lot, buildings,
Yep,
septic,
which
blah, blah,
has a
blah, blah,
value.
which has a value.
What grading and drainage and tree removal, that doesn't have a value.
Correct, but it's part of their cost,
But it's not something we tax,
correct,
so.
correct.
It doesn't enter into the plan. Why do they have to reveal what they did for site work if we're not taxing them on it? In either scenario, either the traditional way or as tax.
But if they're coming to this town and pulling a permit for site work, we know what it's worth, because you're paying for the
Well, right.
permit.
Agreed, you're not stabilizing it, but you're gonna have to see what their investment is. And the only way to see that is to see what their whole investment is, right? They're gonna come in and say, well, our cost, our cost is $30 million. Okay, we'll stabilize $30 million. You're gonna wanna see all of
We have
that. pro forma.
stabilized the entire cost of the project.
No, but how are they gonna show you that that's their cost? They're gonna say, we have a mortgage for 30 million, but the 30 million is gonna include a bunch of stuff like soft costs that, like site work. You're gonna have to see all that data to know what those investment is ultimately gonna. I would wanna see it, and typically you look at all of that pro forma to be able to determine what the value is, because
But if we don't see it in the traditional way, I don't wanna drag this out, but clearly I have more work to do to understand it. Which is probably why it didn't get voted for, because we couldn't speak to multiple things, so. Good things to research for me.
I think that, ultimately. I don't know any community that does this via a legislative
Okay,
body.
then that's a bad idea.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea, it may be the only way this goes forward for the town of Willington and what people think is appropriate, I'm not sure how attractive it's gonna be. If it were an abatement, maybe you'd have more people that were interested in biting, but I'm just wondering, rather than saying you to prepare some type of a guardrail in.
Yeah, that's, I think guardrails.
You know, Board of Selectmen can't enter in stabilization
Yeah.
if 80% or something, you know, so that you stabilize and ultimately are not prorating or reducing the total tax payment by a certain total percentage. Well, you gave them a 90% stabilization, so they're, you know, we're only getting a small fraction. If the reductions aren't so extreme and everybody's more comfortable with what that looks like, with the understanding that, yeah, you're not gonna give stabilization to a business that's been in town for 40 years, this is on
Right.
new investments. Is there a path to keeping this less complicated because it can be done?
In a more contained, sure, I get it, no, that's fine, but I do think I have some holes to fill in my understanding of this, some of it.
Would this be considered in such a way where it's mainly places that are gonna pay a relatively substantial amount of tax you would do this for?
Yeah, the agreement talks about there's some baseline investments and stuff, so it's not just everybody.
Cause it, you know.
Yeah, so electric generating is a minimum of 3 million.
Yeah, Alright.
Worth
this has to be worth the while of both parties to do such a thing.
Tax stabilization in section 2 is 1 million.
I don't see a value for 3.
Don't, I don't see a value for 3. Yep, I
It
do.
was agriculture, I think.
Yeah,
That's a down, maybe.
Yeah, let's see what Matt has to say.
Matt, you still interested? No, you've been hanging.
Yeah, I did, you covered almost everything. I think, I checked with Kara, we had a meeting about implementation. Her comment and her discussion with me was that implementation of tax stabilization agreements is straightforward. All you need to do after it's resolved, she does exactly what you guys said. She comes up with the estimate of, you know, what the value is, provides that to the selectmen. The selectmen, negotiate and with a lawyer. Then the agreement is drawn up. The agreement sits in the assessor's office. The assessor grabs it once a year or however often they send tax bills, and they turn to the section and, you know, send it a bill. Implementation is easy and straightforward. So once agreed upon, also, I know this was written up for energy and agriculture and other sundry things, but Mike was right. I mean, where this applies most is in business personal property, not real estate. I mean, that's what all the abatements are for and things like that. We you know, the first draft of this from the lawyer had abatements and incentives and a whole bunch of stuff. And I sent it back and said, strip it all out. We don't want any of that. No one in Willington is going to vote for incentives and giveaways. So that they took it all out, and this will be simply just straightforward, stabilization. So when you have high value, personal property assets that are business assets, that includes batteries, but it also includes, as we heard, mainframes, but all the data center stuff. So, right now there are no data centers in Connecticut. The other states have, many of them. So that's one of the things that I was looking at, was if we could structure something that would make sense to attract that kind of clean business. So in any event, that's all my comments. Thank you.
So, what was your takeaway from the meeting, Matt, insofar as what was lacking, what people were looking for? I'd like to hear what your side of that. I was at the meeting, a number of us were, but what was your takeaway?
Well, I was disappointed. I mean, we worked for a year and a half on this. Apparently, didn't foresee some stuff, I guess. I don't know, but so the takeaway was that there was some folks that wanted no development at all, but some. There was others that wanted to have a very, very clear understanding of exactly how this was implemented, as you indicated, Bob. And I don't know how to give more detail than it's assessed as a regular, business, and as a regular investment in our town, the same way it would be otherwise. And then there's a stabilization that goes over the useful life of the assets.
Well,
So that it's taxed.
one of the things, my takeaway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just the things that you had just mentioned about your conversations with the assessor, that part was missing at that meeting. And I think if those things were available and made known to the public at the town meeting, I think that would have answered some of the questions people had.
But one of my takeaways from sitting there was a lot of people, this is the first we've heard of this. That was brought up.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably the biggest problem. People claiming that I didn't know anything about this. Where'd this come from? Why wasn't this vetted through Board of Finance or, yada, yada. I know we talked about it, relatively briefly, our last meeting.
Yeah.
But I heard that several times.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why some people feel confusion in trying to judge whether or not this is a good thing for the legislative body is, look at what we do when we go to buy a $100,000 town mower. That goes to the town meeting. We're gonna approve a $100,000 town mower. So when they're looking at something bigger than that, they're saying, well, geez, doesn't this deserve any more, inspection or knowledge or consideration? Not that it does, but I mean, that's just the way we're set up. That's what people's expectations are.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I think was pretty obvious at the meeting was that, this is new. Like has been mentioned, we haven't heard about it before. And it boils down to the same thing about how do you communicate with the public. Personally, I'd like to have the selectmen announce at every one of their meetings that let people know that they can sign up for everything that's on the town website. And that's their way of getting information. I never hear any of the meetings mention that. And it should be a priority of the selectmen to make sure that that's mentioned at every one of their meetings. That if you haven't signed up to get the electronic version of what's going on in town, meetings, minutes, the whole 9 yards, you should sign up because that's where you're gonna get the information.
Or you can just go on the town website and get it.
Or go on the
And not
town
have your
website.
inbox flooded with stuff like that.
Yeah,
I also said that I think the selectmen agenda should look like these. With all that, look at all the information we have on the side.
Yep.
That all of that could be on this, so they could have
Sure,
who are the
yeah.
members,
Yeah.
how to sign up, how to do the Zoom meetings, all of this stuff. Should be right on our own
easy to do.
agendas, and then I would like to, I
they should
think our
follow,
agenda should have a little more detail.
they should follow our lead.
I mentioned it the other day, I think I mentioned it at the town meeting.
We're doing things right.
Well, I like this, well, when we talked about this, can we put this in the margins, it always comes up. Yes, the answer is, of course, you can put it in the margins.
Yeah.
And that's your standard template, and you launch off of that.
Yep.
And it's always there, just like we have that little disclaimer on the bottom now about when a meeting is interrupted, that's a state legislative decree that if you're interrupted through electronic problems, fine, there's a method. It's on there, we should have all that stuff on there. Anyway, and I've said it a couple of times, that's a good idea. Anyway,
Personally, I think once people get more familiar with this and they get maybe a little bit more information, I think it'd pass. I really do.
yeah, it's a political law.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything on this one? All right, no unfinished business tonight. Item G, approval of minutes, September 16th, 2025.
You don't have them, I didn't get them done.
Okay, we'll move that
That
to
one
the
was
next
out,
meeting.
so, yeah.
And just for the record, Michael Johansson is at the meeting. He's not being seated tonight because we have a full house of regulars.
One cross.
All right,
So just, yeah, we'll table that and I will put it on subsequent meeting.
okay. No correspondence tonight. Public participation for items not listed on the agenda. Anyone have anything? Okay. Staff report discussion. Item 1, commission discussion, permitting requirements for ground mount solar array installation at Button Hill.
So, this is looking for some feedback and I think an endorsement of an interpretation in my reading of the regulations. You have a site plan in front of you, which shows a proposed ground mount solar array that the housing authority is interested in installing. I'm gonna hand something out. So you can see that, using you look quickly, you might confuse the septic and
So
the
you're
solar.
moving a recreation area from there to here.
Well, so there's some other stuff that they have to do with the Board of Selectmen, because there's a lease agreement that the town has with the housing authority. But one of the things that is in sort of the way the regulations are set up, in place is this zone and use comes with a 200-foot setback requirement. So the building is currently situated to address the 200-foot setback. So to locate this where it needs to go, we're trying to understand the permitting path and what would that mean? Would it mean simply getting variance? Would this need to then be some type of a site plan and special permit modification from the commission? How would that work and in what order? Because the Board of Selectmen would need to modify the lease agreement to say yes, right, step after step after step. So I was going through the regulations when we were trying to figure it out and determine what the path forward is. And whether or not this would be accessory structure, kind of how that all comes together. And the regulations don't really address how to deal with accessory structures in this zone for this use. So we don't say like, oh, like we have language for how you would put in a shed or private garage, all these things. I came across the section which I gave to you, which is highlighted in yellow, which says the commission may reduce the minimum setback for multiple dwelling unit buildings for the elderly or congregate elderly housing to no less than 50 feet where there are uses on adjoining properties which shall be compatible with, benefit from, or provide benefit to such dwellings. Examples would include shopping facilities, healthcare facilities, churches, community or government buildings, parking, transportation, and the like. And so,
Solar panels weren't included in that list that.
so then there's,
Table film.
just want to go through this really quickly.
Help me understand this. The solar panels are gonna provide power for what? For the facility?
To help offset the energy costs, because obviously those are affordable units, right? So
Yeah.
there's,
And the
folks that live there.
lifespan, 20 years.
Typically, they look to cite them for that long, I don't, with panels and stuff. But hold on, I wanna.
So they have solar on the roof now of all of the units?
I believe so. One second.
Done. I was told I was not able to speak to this, so if I'm invited to speak, I will. As chairman of the housing authority.
Do all of them have panels on the roof?
We have panels on the roof that power our utility rooms, and we have 3 apartments that have solar panels that assist their electrical usage and offset some of their electrical usage. This array would actually, not so much offset our electricity, but, provide about $250,000 for the benefit of money to benefit our residents.
So you'd sell the electricity back to the grid, is that?
Yeah, it just all goes back to the grid. And Eversource and Pura have an agreement for multifamily, low-income properties where they pay a significant amount of money for every kilowatt hour, which helps.
Is the grid up here, substantial enough to handle the input?
We will find out. The interconnection agreement is either drawn up and been submitted or to be submitted shortly to Eversource, at which point in time we'll find out whether they have the capacity or not. It's kind of a rush because of the new big beautiful bill and the fact that tax credits begin to, federal tax credits begin to go away December 31 of this year if they can't start installation.
So Mike, the question is, because the solar array is less than 200-foot setback?
Well, I mean, part of the question is how to address what the requirement actually is. Because we don't have, like I said, there's not guidance for how to deal with or apply setbacks for an accessory structure in the zone based on what's referenced. The term solar isn't really referenced anywhere in the reg period. But there's also some language in B, which says in any case, those uses, not buildings or structures permitted in an abutting RA zone may be located in such DER zone in accordance with the required setbacks for an RA zone. So the other question is, again, and I'm reading that, I'm thinking they're talking about primary buildings and structures, because what would require you to meet the setbacks other than some type of physical improvement to the property? It seems both unnecessary and unnatural, because if you look at how the rest of the regulations are structured, to make an accessory structure meet the same standards as the primary structure, right? We have reduced setbacks for accessory structures in residential zones, right? You cite the building envelope and you have the primary building, and then you have an accessory structure which may go, in the back corner of the lot or whatever. But there's no real guidance on how to determine that. The only thing we know is that there's a 200-foot setback, which this, as proposed, is 100, would be 130 at the, or I guess 100 on the town side, which, and then 130 on the abutter side. So,
How are you gonna
Would this
determine
require a
what's?
public hearing?
well, so that's kind of what we're trying to figure out, is if the traditional process would require a variance and then a modification of the special permit. So both of those would require public hearings and notices, and that is not happening between now and the end of the year.
How can you determine if this is primary or secondary?
Primary or secondary, but what are you?
Mike, how
What
do
do
you, how do you determine if this array is, primary or secondary?
So for me, it would be accessory or secondary, because it's supporting the use on the property. The primary use
Yeah.
is the facility itself.
So already you should be down to what, 25 or 50 feet?
Well, so again, that I think is the question is the way that this is worded, is this line B here allow for this to be cited in accordance with the setbacks in the R80 zone, because it isn't a primary building and structure? It's, again, these regulations are not necessarily overly clear.
So that would, the next question in my mind would be, what is Button Hill zoned at? Is that an R80?
No, they are DER.
DER design.
Oh, okay.
Residential.
But I know, I'm looking at this line.
So,
Right.
no, so what are your setbacks for that type of zoning, for that type of zone?
But it's 200
It's
feet,
200.
no building or structure.
Is an array considered a structure?
It says here the commission may reduce the minimum setback for single family buildings to the elderly no less than 100 feet in the DER zone. That's a residential building.
You've got no enclosure, no building, no walls. Like, is it even a structure?
But we wanna watch out what we do here, because what happens?
Everybody else,
you know,
everybody else.
Right, just don't
Yeah.
think about just about this, it's town-wide.
Square footage of ground cover?
Yes, that's the way I.
Well, this is specific to the DER zone,
Well, yeah.
and it does say we can reduce it to 50 feet. Where there are uses on adjoining properties which shall be compatible with benefit from or provide benefit to such dwellings. Now, the way I read that, it means that. If we wanted to reduce it to 50 feet because there was a park next door, we wanted the elderly people to walk there. Or if there was a bus stop or something else that complemented the primary use.
But this
This is a little bit.
this is gonna make money for the.
Yeah.
So
Right,
instead of
it's really-
this isn't the power of the facility, it's the,
No, I understand that. There's, look, reading the regs, it says this. The commission may reduce the minimum setback for multiple dwelling unit buildings. It doesn't say ancillary or supporting structures. It's talking about the primary use buildings.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is, this is an accessory building. You could probably all speak to that.
Yeah.
Like we do.
choose.
There are new regs on the DER zone.
315-5.08.
155.0.
Can I just ask a question? This doesn't fall under number 2, a non-residential use.
Number 2.
On that page you handed us, number 2, non-residential uses. No non-residential use may be included in any, okay, no,
To me, it's not a use.
okay.
It would be an accessory structure. And it talks about accessory uses in buildings in the DER section, but does not provide any guidance on siting.
So what did you say, 315.508?
5.08, yeah.
So folks think a solar array is a structure? Cause I'm having trouble with that. I think it's a stretch.
Oh, it's certainly a structure. Like it's fastened to the ground.
Yeah, there's no walls, there's no footings, there's no roof,
Yeah, they lay them on the ground.
and you can take them down. I mean, I don't know.
There's wiring and so forth that goes along with it. You have to get that wiring over the grid somehow, you know, either through underground piping or.
There's a foundation to mount it on, right?
Not necessarily, depends on the quality of the ground you're putting it on. I've been through all this, like at work, where they come and propose it for major, you know, industrial sites and everything. They're, you know, some of these are, this one's not that huge, but there's some pretty substantial solar arrays they put in.
So like you're saying, if there's no walls, no roof, there's no foundation.
In 20 years or not.
Where's Article 7?
For 20 years, you gotta scrap it.
Yeah,
Or redo it, you know, two choices.
it sounded like a building.
Because they degrade over time, and, you know, well.
I know.
Well, it says here also under, I'm on page, I don't know what page I'm on. 5-08, it says required lot area, blah, 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 blah. I'm still under the DER, I think, I don't think I missed a page, says, see Article 7, accessory uses, buildings and structures, so. Now I'm looking for Article 7.
Well, would this be a special permit under, again, number 2, I utilities? On that same 508, yep, under A. And then you flip the back page, it says special permit. Uses and use categories permitted subject to an issuance of a special permit. And one of them is a utility. Wouldn't that be considered a utility? Or am I reading that wrong? I could be reading wrong.
So how does the relocation of like the recreation area and the soccer courts and everything, how does that get financed in this project?
May I speak?
Yeah,
Okay, well, all we're really proposing to do is relocate an area to another area. So that we meet the square footage requirements, and then we're gonna have to reinstall a bocce court as a recreation device, I guess. Because we're covering that with solar panel, or proposing to cover that with
oh
solar
yeah, it
panels.
says bocce, sorry, if I said soccer.
And I'll add also
Oh, yes.
that there's, I'm inclined to agree that it's a structure, and I'm also inclined to think that. Even if it may be contrary to my position, that the 7-foot enclosing fence might be considered a structure by the building department. as well, just to cover our bases while
Mhm.
we're here.
Well, I'm reading under the DVR again on that, 5.08. Number, letter B, required lot area, lot frontage, minimum lot depth, maximum lot coverage, minimum front yard, side yard, rear yard, maximum height. Except as provided otherwise in this 315-508. The proceeding shall be in accordance with Articles 8 and 4 of these regs. See also at Article 7, accessory uses, buildings and structures. Seems like we are ceding anything to do with accessory uses, buildings and structures to Article 7. Am I right?
And yeah, if you look at that section, there's
Article 7 is a single page.
Article 7, well, if you look at accessory buildings and structures and you go through, it's
Yeah.
not a building, it doesn't have walls and a roof.
Right.
So if you go to structures, it says the location shall be no less than the dimension of their height plus 10 feet. Then it says that structures shall be used only for accessory to a principal use permitted in the subject zone. So you can't have an accessory use unless it's subordinate to the primary use and that the primary use is a permitted use in the zone.
So I think we're covered there.
So then it talks about specific types, swimming pools, dog kennels, decks, accessory radio towers, and vending machines.
The closest thing, maybe wireless telecommunications.
Maybe a radio, the radio.
Right, we don't mention.
Right.
I'd say radio towers, wireless, I mean, if those are allowed. I'm not really seeing solar panels as being.
It's a vending machine, it's vending
And-
energy.
It's not offending.
It's vending energy.
And if you go to section 8, which is where the table of all the setbacks and stuff is, for this zone, it just has a little number 2, which is note 2. If you go to note 2, it just says in accordance with the DER.
Yeah,
So all the setbacks, front yard, side yard, all those, it's just 2 right across the table, which says go to the DER. The DER doesn't really talk about it. So,
which is back to Article 7.
so even if, from their perspective, the worst case scenario is that they have to start by getting a variance. What is the variance they're requesting? Is it 200 feet? Is it something else? Is it the side yard setbacks? Or an accessory structure? Based on that line, it shall be not more than whatever plus 10 feet plus the height. There's not it's just not clear. And even if they seek a variance, they have to know what they're asking to vary.
Are you familiar with anything similar in another town? This can't be a new problem.
No, it's just that generally you look at primary, having a specific zone for essentially 2 uses, elderly housing and congregate housing, and then changing your setback to 200 feet is a little bit unique. So normally you just look at, well, what are the setbacks across the zones, right? We would look at what's the traditional side yard setback, it's an accessory structure. But there's just no reference to it. It is an accessory structure. It doesn't exist without the facility there.
Yeah.
And yes, it's going back to the grid because that's how it works. You can't be your own self-sustaining little ecosystem where you just power your own buildings with solar on site.
So they're 100 feet to one property line, they're 130 feet to another.
They're 130 to the people in front of them. They're 100 feet to the town hall parcel.
I like it, the height plus 10 feet.
Do you have the distance from the fencing as well on
No,
that?
this is just to the solar panel.
Okay,
But I mean, it
Doesn't say from the edge of the fence.
okay, I've got it here with it to the edge of the fence.
Okay,
And my,
we should know that.
Or, I mean, just looking at the scale, that's not gonna be more than even 20 feet. So you're still looking at probably 80 plus and 100 plus. So I guess the question is, what do we apply? Do we just apply do we use this in any case, those uses of buildings and structures permitted in an abutting R80 zone may be located in accordance with the required setbacks? And then we just cite this in accordance with the setbacks of an accessory structure. And that would then absolve them from the need to have a modification of the permit and submit for a public hearing and all of those, or what?
I would be comfortable with dealing with it as an accessory dwelling. Or
Structure.
accessory structure, I'm sorry. Anybody else?
Sounds good to me.
I'm not close to that.
Then it-
How tall?
Pardon me?
About how tall is a
Well,
solar panel
well, let's
array
get
these
back to
days?
that foundation question, and I think that Tim Sadler, our representative Earthlight, said they would probably be sloped from 5 feet or 6 feet to like 15 feet high, so there would be a foundation. In this case, it wouldn't be ballasted. I read those sections over half a dozen times, they didn't get a whole lot more clarity out of them each read.
Trying to think of the ones up at exit 71 and the ones that, they all seem different. I think it depends on the design of the array, and it doesn't seem to be a standard height there, is there? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you wanna get them high enough, I guess, so that at least the grass doesn't
I don't,
obstruct them.
you're gonna get sheep.
Yeah.
Sheep and solar are going together.
And there was, one of the sections talked about it being
That's true.
essentially the same as an adjacent use. And my thought, as I expressed to you, was that, I mean, you can use solar in an R80, so it should be, an R80 residential, so it should be compatible with a DER solar. And as you read that, I don't know what was 1 or 2 subsection that you highlighted. So it's not incompatible solar with residential use nearby. That's my other thought, but I'll let you carry on.
There was an article in the JI that they're trying to encourage people to eat more land. Because they wanna put sheep on all the solar farms, keep the wheat down. A lot. Then it was in the JI.
Watch out, New Zealand, here comes New England.
There you go. Land.
So you can see
More land.
on the aerial, this is the basin that's shown above. Sort of to the, I guess it's to the north, but it's sort of up and to the right of the proposed panel, so you can see the infrastructure that's there. In this little area, so we're talking about. You know, this area in here,
Oh, that little V is what there'll be on the map there.
so see this?
Yeah.
That's that little, like a dumpster,
Dumpster.
so you can see that little square,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be,
What's that behind there, that drainage?
yeah,
That's-
detention.
That protects the.
Yep. So, I mean, the main thing for me, what we see with these are, what way are they facing? So these are gonna be facing towards the building, they're not gonna be facing the neighbor.
Yeah.
Because because north is that way, they're not, so they'll face south, so they're not gonna be projecting this sort of glowing blue. You know, glare on the neighbors, and there's still gonna be. I mean, all of this existing vegetation remains, right? There's no intention of that coming down. We have 100 feet, even if they had to clear for. Well, no, because this is all,
Yeah, it's basically.
Maybe some vegetation to the east. It could be, may come down a little bit just to allow more morning sun. Hasn't been a great good deal of discussion on that yet.
I think that, you know, keeping that buffer there so that these folks continue to look through at trees. They're not gonna be looking at the backside of the panel system. But it's, if it was gonna be facing in their yard, I think that would be different, because they're gonna be looking at that and. But
When would this have to be installed by to still get your
I
inspection?
think we need to install 5% of it by December 31st. And
How do you
I'm
get a lot
not
of work?
clear on whether that's 5% of the cost of it needs to be spent on soft costs. Or whether it needs to be spent on hard costs.
The foundation, that's not ideal weather to pour after mid-November.
Well, yeah, well, you do what you gotta do in order to meet the federal requirements to see the tax credit, or else Earthlight's not gonna wanna do it. So we're kind of charging forward to several different town boards and committees just to make sure that we got a chance of getting it done.
Yeah, you'd almost have to be clearing land now, getting everything ready.
Here we are now,
Yeah.
so tomorrow we meet with the selectmen and try to figure out what the hoops are.
The solar panels change the runoff coefficient, does it turn it into impervious, or is it just considered a wash?
not when the lowest, I mean, in my mind, not when the lowest component is 5+ feet.
you know, the water drains off the
There will-
panel, so it's okay.
Yeah, there's, you know, I guess there'll be some sheet flow. When we did the solar array at next to TA,
Yeah,
you know, they were, one of the comments from the town engineer was, you know, do you need to change what's gonna be on the bottom, the drip edge, so that you don't just have this constant
Yeah, yeah,
drip dirt, but I think it was sort of like,
No,
what's gonna happen? It's not gonna be generating so much runoff that you're gonna have sedimentation.
right.
And there's enough of a gap in that it'll establish grass or something there, but,
Good to know.
okay, so we are going to permit this as an accessory structure based on that section B, and we're gonna apply the R80 zone setback.
I think they're good.
Okay.
Motion for that.
No, I was looking for guidance on the way forward.
Residential's in the DER names. I think that makes sense.
And regarding item 2, I put that on here based on our discussion, but then I realized that in less than a month, all the terms switch. And so it doesn't really make sense because the requirements are by term. So there would be no point to doing it now, so I figure we'll just hold and then we can start that once the terms that are come up are established so that everybody's in that cycle.
may I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
Because I don't quite understand what happened. And did we avoid the zoning board of appeals?
Yes.
By what we just,
Yes.
what you just discussed? Okay. So now it becomes a planning and zoning commission approval of the site, of the modified site plan? Or,
It's an accessory structure, so it would be permitted by staff.
okay.
You see.
He's your man.
It sounds like it. You?
Welcome. Have a good night. All right, it is 9:12 PM, meeting adjourned.
All right. Okay, so see, that's my friend.